Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Uh, Respected Principal, Dr. Binoy Joseph, Dr. Father Joseph M.K., Head of the Department, Mrs. Preeti Patkar, our resource person of the day, and the chief guest, who is going to lead the plenary session of the day. Members of faculty, and dear students, research scholars, and other delegates. A good afternoon to one and all. We actually look at the conference as a means of deliberations and learning. SWARAJ is a platform which is operated by the students. It's a club of students, and they very often they conduct a lot of deliberations, especially on various themes related to the socially relevant themes. And today, this is a special occasion where we have chosen very special topic like children, human rights, and social work. I would say we are discussing this particular topic in a circumstance where all over the state, or I would say all over the nation, we discuss or we have a lot of gender-based discussions, especially on the protection of women. Recently, when we were talking about the digital divide, I had the opportunity to participate in one of the discussions conducted by Mayan School, a government school in Rivikara, where there were a lot of people or a lot of students not having access to the digital technology. Then we had a discussion how to help out as an alumnus. And I was also part of it. When we discussed to one of the family members, there are two children. One is a girl, another one is a boy. And they said we need at least one mobile. Then we asked how about the other child. And their response was actually, I mean, it happened in Kerala. It was really shocking. Like they said, she will manage even if she misses one or two classes. That's not a problem. But we want to ensure that he learns. So this particular topic actually talks about children, human rights, and social work. And therein, when we look at the vulnerability map, it is at least for social workers, it is high time for us to redraw the diagram. Like if you are not educated, you are vulnerable. If you are disabled, you are more vulnerable. And if you are not educated and if you are disabled, you are more vulnerable. And if you are a woman, you are vulnerable. If you are a child, you are vulnerable. And most importantly, if you are a girl child, you are the most vulnerable category. I mean, it is in this context that when we look at the profile of Preeti Patkar, we are most fortunate today that she has actually experienced and felt the same feelings in the ground reality, from the ground reality. And when we had a word with her, she was very happy to participate, and she extended all sort of support to Rajagiri. And it is in that context that we are here, and especially SWARAJ is organizing this conference for discussing and deliberating on this particular aspect today. My duty is to welcome all of you to this particular August gathering, to this online platform. First of all, let me welcome Dr. Binoy Joseph, our dear principal. And whenever we need any sort of help, and he is there. And I used to surprise how he manages to attend one after the another meeting and the conference, everything, and he's there. Because for a captain to be present everywhere, it shows that I am with you, just go ahead. So dear principal, on behalf of all present here, we welcome you to this conference.
Thank you, Rajiv, sir.
Dr. Joseph M.K., actually this is a brainchild of Dr. Joseph M.K., our head of the department. He said, it's not mere celebration of certain days, especially Human Rights Day or Children's Day, but we need to have a very scientific deliberations on different aspects. And this thought of organizing a conference by SWARAJ, the students platform, actually stemmed from Father's inspiration and his guidance. Dear Father Joseph M.K., you are actually a true model, especially in the social work arena, and we learn a lot from you. On behalf of all present here, all teachers, faculty, and students, I welcome you to this gathering.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Mrs. Preeti Patkar, As I said, the most significant person to talk about the topic, the development sector responding to the rights of girl child or girl children. Purposefully, we wanted to talk about girl children. As I said, it's the most vulnerable category. Or even if I don't personally, I don't like to use the word vulnerable, but still we need to sometimes because it requires a lot of scientific attention. Ms. Preeti Patkar is the founder of Prerana Foundation. The single name is enough. The whole Rajagiri family is actually happy to welcome her. Prerana Foundation. Of course, we promise you that we are here to extend all sort of support to your foundation and all your endeavors. Ma'am, on behalf of Rajagiri management and entire Rajagiri family, students, teachers, everybody present on this platform, I welcome you to this webinar. Let me also welcome all my faculty colleagues. All faculty members are present. All will come and talk to you in point of time during these 2 days of deliberations. I welcome all of you. Dr. Kiran will be there on the platform to propose vote of thanks for the function. And I welcome all the delegates, all the research scholars, all those who are going to present their papers. I welcome all of you and wishing you all the best. I remain. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I welcome Ms. Ansia Badar, Student Coordinator of SWARAJ, for the report presentation.
Sir, PPT present.
Ansia, 1 minute.
Okay, Amal. Good afternoon, everyone. Respected faculties and my dear friends. With the aim of building up a pro-people attitude and deepen the social interest of the social work students of Rajagiri, SWARAJ, Social Work Students Association of Rajagiri, plays a vital role. Taking into consideration the diversity of interest and according to the specialization and need of the community, SWARAJ organizes various enriching and thought-provoking programs for the whole Rajagiri family. We started the activities of the inauguration of SWARAJ on 24th June 2019. The ceremony was organized by the final year BSW students. The chief guest, Sri P. Suresh, Chairperson, Kerala State Commission for Protection of Child Rights, inaugurated SWARAJ and gave a special lecture on child rights. Dr. M.P. Anthony, Child Rights Commission, also addressed the gathering. We started the activity Know Your Mind campaign, an initiative of Astro MedCity, to create mental health awareness among students of schools and colleges. Students from our college conducted class on the same in various schools in Ernakulam district. We organized group discussions and debates on the topic My NGO, Child Labor and Body Shaming. Amal, next. Amal, next. The students had attended a session by Love in Action, a registered non-profitable charitable trust solely dedicated to the service of anyone who is often neglected by family and society on 1st October 2019. Next. The students under the leadership of SWARAJ took part in a class about probation in association with the District Probation Office, Ernakulam, on 14 October 2019. The major objective was to make students aware about probation in courts. Next. SWARAJ hosted a debate competition on the topic Climate Change and Human Existence on 19 November 2019. As part of SWARAJ, poster making competition was held on 14th January 2020 based on the theme child abuse. As part of SWARAJ, a round table conference also conducted. The lockdown period on 4th February 2020, as part of the SWARAJ, an orientation program was conducted at the Golden Oriole on the club formation of anti-human trafficking. The lockdown period was a tough time for the students. In order to cheer the students and develop their talents, SWARAJ has conducted various programs like intra-college music competition under the title Magamasa, which had active participation from different departments of the college. A YouTube channel was opened under the banner of SWARAJ to promote the skills and talents of the students. An inter-department short film competition was conducted and the short films were uploaded in the SWARAJ YouTube channel. On 26th of January, SWARAJ hosted a webinar on leadership school. Mr. Biren Bhutta, former chief of the CSR Tata Steel, was a resource person. Next. An international webinar on social work and development in the post-pandemic era was organized by Rajagiri School of Social Sciences under the SWARAJ platform of Social Work Department of RCSS on 22nd February 2020. The resource person of the webinar is Dr. Brij Mohan, the Dean Emeritus, School of Social Work, Louisiana State University, Los Angeles, USA. Next. On March 16, 2021, social work staffs and students of Rajagiri College of Social Sciences, under the leadership of SWARAJ, in collaboration with the University of Edinburgh, UK, and Johannesburg University, South Africa, jointly celebrated World Social Work Day 2021 on the common theme Ubuntu, I am because we are, strengthening social solidarity and global connectedness. Next. An awareness camp on road safety was organized by SWARAJ under the leadership of the Research Institute, Rajagiri College. The camp was led by Sri Joseph Cherian, Motor Vehicle Inspector. Next. Lumin and SWARAJ, in collaboration with the Gunj NGO, conducted the cloth collection campaign. There were more than 125 kilograms of cloth collected under the leadership of Lumin. The collected clothes were recycled for reusing and for making masks. Let me conclude the report by quoting Mark Wetterhand's quote. Don't wait until everything is just right. It will never be perfect. There will always be challenges, obstacles, and less than perfect conditions. So what? Get started with now. With each steps you take, you will grow stronger and stronger, more and more skilled, more and more self-confident, and more successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ansia. Dr. Father Joseph M.K. is the head of the Department of Social Work. His teaching and research interests are in the area of community development and social entrepreneurship. His major interest lies in developing partnerships for civil society organizations and rural producer organizations with governmental as well as other resource systems in addressing issues related to sustainable development. I invite Dr. Father Joseph M.K. for the presidential address.
Respected Principal, Dr. Binoy Joseph, the Chief Guest of the day, Mrs. Preeti Patkar, Development Sector Specialist, Faculty Coordinator, Dr. Raji, Dr. Kiran, and other faculty members, and students of Rajagiri, and other participants of this seminar on children, human rights, and social work. The very organization of this seminar from the SWARAJ, that's a student-led initiative, is based on our strategy of immersive learning, where we provide opportunities for students to engage in various levels of academic engagement, and organizing and presenting papers in this seminar is an expression of how we provide opportunities for students for immersive learning and developing leadership for students to become future social workers. So social work is always a response to a concern and issues of children, and violation of human rights is always at the heart of social work discourse. And the four basic rights of children: participation, survival, development, and protection, coming from the UN conventions and subsequent discussions on human rights, has deepened the discussion on protecting the rights of children, especially of girl child, as rightly pointed out by Dr. Raji. But many a time we see that the exercise or utilization of these rights are conditioned to a privileged few children, maybe living in the urban areas of the elite class or the upper class, or those who are in power, or those who are attached to the power centers of the society. As mentioned, the digital divide that is created in education due to the online education is really making many children push to the boundaries. So we can see that today in the center we find the elite and the powerful and economically rich benefiting from the COVID situation, but the majority of the children in the rural areas are in the peripheries, pushing down. So sometimes you have to start the literacy campaign again to start from the basics. So within this context, our students are deliberating, discussing on various issues of children and how we'll be able to create better rights for the children. So in a corporatizing world, many a time we fail to understand the people who are in the peripheries because all of us are looking at profits and benefits. So I hope that this conference will enable the social work students to develop better practices in the area of family and child welfare, because many of our live labs in Rajagiri are working in the domain of family, child, youth, and so on. So hope this seminar will not only encourage their academic endeavor, at the same time create insights for developing better practice that is the need of the hour. Hope that the seminar will benefit all of us to upskill as well as to scale up our services for the humanity, especially of those who are in the peripheries. With this small introduction, I conclude, and I wish all success for this seminar. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father. Dr. Binoy Joseph is the principal of Rajagiri College of Social Sciences. He has an extensive expertise in the areas of employee resourcing, performance management, reward management, HR accounting, and auditing. His core research interest lies in HRM innovations and also has professional expertise in hospitality industry. Inviting Dr. Binoy Joseph for the inaugural address.
Thank you. Mrs. Preeti Patkar, chief guest for this two-day webinar, and who is to give the plenary session. Dr. Father M.K. Joseph, head of the Department of Social Work. Dr. Rajiv S.P., faculty coordinator, SWARAJ. Dr. Kiran Thampi, faculty and social work department and batch coordinator, other faculty members, and my dear students. SWARAJ, Social Work Association of Rajagiri, is a forum by the students for discussing and debating on various important and pertinent topics in our society, especially helping our students to have or to develop perspectives on these important topics. And I'm glad that the HOD, Dr. Father M.K. Joseph, has taken interest not only to have discussions on weekly basis, but also or to celebrate on the Human Rights Day or certain important days, but also on important topics through webinars by inviting relevant resource persons. The topic children, human rights, and social work is very, very significant in the present day, especially with the theme contemporary child care social work, the intrapersonal and interagency practices. And today we have the plenary session on development sector responding to the rights of girl children by Mrs. Preeti Patkar. Our Indian Constitution guarantees rights of equality, dignity, and freedom from exploitation and discrimination for our girl children. So our Constitution has enshrined this, but in practice we find that even in a forward state or a developed state like Kerala, we find that there is many of the rights of children are violated, and especially of girl children. There are many issues in the present day where rights of children, girl children and women are violated, and government is actively pursuing to develop ways and means to curb this menace. Now, of late, because of the many dowry deaths in our state, the government of Kerala and especially the Social Justice Department and Family and Child Welfare Department has approached a college to develop a premarital counseling module which is secular in nature to be provided to all girl children, especially in schools and colleges, which can prevent such sort of atrocities in future. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, especially when teaching learning has become online, as Dr. Rajiv SP has mentioned, when there is a digital divide and when there is shortage of resources, we find that again there is a discrimination of sharing the resources with the girl children. So these are all some of the case-based or evidence-based practices which we can see that there is a discrimination for the girl children to a small level to the highest level. If we as a social worker are able to build perspectives, are able to build awareness, are able to build volunteers, are able to build committed NGOs, we can fight against this menace. We have been fighting against this menace of violation of right to girl children for many years. And we have seen that there are changes brought in. One among the changes that is brought in the considerable way is about mitigation of child labor. Mitigation of child labor, especially among girl children. It's because of intervention of some of the state governments and also central government to provide nutrition and meals for these girl children and children at large from the schools so that they attend the schools for getting these meals and thus preventing the child labor to a great extent. Some of the NGOs and the government has been successful in preventing child marriages, especially the states of the north of our country. So there are dedicated corporates, dedicated foundation of the corporates, NGOs working round the clock to ensure that these rights of the girl children are protected, are reinstated when there is violation, and awareness campaigns and dedicated volunteers are brought to the forefront to fight against this evil. We as a social work education institution is to build sensitivity among our social work students on this topic and to help them build their own individual perspective so that this perspective is carried all through their life and they become a true volunteer and ambassador to fight against the violation of the rights of the girl children. I congratulate SWARAJ, the Social Work Association of Rajagiri, and its faculty coordinator, Dr. Rajiv SP, and also the HOD, the head of the Department of Social Work, Father M.K. Joseph, for having initiated such meaningful discussion and debate online. I take the opportunity to thank Mrs. Preeti Patkar, the social worker and founder and executive secretary of Prerana Foundation. Rajagiri has done many activities in collaboration with Prerana Foundation past, and we have a very fruitful and meaningful relationship with Prerana Foundation. I take this opportunity to tell you, ma'am, that we are committed to work along with you for the protection of right of girl child and women in whatever action possible, along with you and your foundation. So once again, thanking all the students, coordinators of SWARAJ and all my faculty in the social department, especially once again keeping the flag high to get the second best college in social work in India for the 2021 India Today ranking. I remain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now we will have a plenary session. The theme for the session is Development Sector Responding to the Rights of Girl Children. The plenary lecture would be delivered by Ms. Preeti Patkar. Ms. Preeti Patkar, fondly known as Preeti Thai, is the founder and executive secretary of Prerana. Originating from Mumbai, she obtained her bachelor's social work from Nirmala Niketan College and her master's in social work from Tata Institute of Social Sciences. In the year 1986, she, along with her husband, Professor Dr. Praveen Patkar, began their work along with Nirmala Niketan College of Social Work in Kamatipura, the then largest red light area in Asia. It was there that the Prerana was born, to break the cycle of exploitation and intergenerational trafficking. I invite Ms. Preeti Patkar to commence the session.
Hi. Should I start? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So good afternoon, everybody, and hope everybody's fine. Everybody in your family is doing well. They are safe, and so are your friends. I know these are difficult times, and I hope all of you are safe. And thank you, Dr. Binoy Joseph and Dr. M.K. Joseph and Dr. Rajiv for inviting me. I think I would like to congratulate Rajgiri College of Social Sciences and the Department of Social Work for organizing this online workshop. And once again, thanking you all for inviting me to speak today at this online conference on children, human rights, and social work. And yeah, thank you everybody in the audience, the students, the faculties, the future of our social work in India. So thank you so much. I truly appreciate you all inviting me here. I really like the theme which reads Children, Human Rights and Social Work. It means that children rights are human rights. They are not separate from human rights. Despite the universal, I just want to know, this possibility that the internet may be patchy, so in between I might just switch off my video just in case I find it is patchy, and just in case you can't hear me, just put it in the chat box, or you think I'm going fast or I'm talking stupid, just let me know in the chat box, and I'll try and work on my presentation. So yeah, coming back to we all believe, and the topic that you have taken, clubbing children rights and human rights. Yes, children rights are human rights, and despite the Universal Declaration of Human Rights way back in 1948, which espoused to protect the rights of all human beings, and when we say all human beings, children included, there was still a concern raised that children were getting lost, their rights were being excluded, neglected, and many organizations and individuals worked relentlessly to draft children's rights. And since then till today, there are many of us, despite believing that children's rights are human rights, and Article 2 of the UNCRC requires all of the rights to be implemented for every child without discrimination. Like very rightly said by Dr. Joseph, Dr. M.K. Joseph, that there is no discrimination when we are talking about human rights. There is no discrimination and should not be any discrimination when we talk of children's rights. But we still feel today, we are in 2021, and we still feel the need to discuss rights of children, dedicate time, give slots to discuss rights of children. And I think it's rightly so, because even today we see how girl children are being ignored, violated, neglected, and how we are so far from achieving the goal of gender equality and equal rights, very nicely put by Rajiv sir about his field experience recently on the digital divide, where even today, when it comes to resources, the first person to claim the resource is the boy or the men in our society. We all know, I know as students of social work, you all know India ratified UNCRC in 1992. And I think it's been over 28 years and we still see discrimination. We see girls are left behind. They are there. So, as social work students, I think one thing that we should stop saying is girls are voiceless. I think they exist. We all have a voice. Okay, we are not voiceless. But in reality, what is happening is nobody has the time to hear us. Nobody has the time to hear a girl child. They are silenced and not allowed to exercise their right to make their own choices. Even today, there are several sections of our Indian society where the girl child is considered as a burden. They are not wanted, and their families wait to get rid of them by getting them married while they are still children, or by killing them even before they are born. So I am actually going to share a different story to begin with. I'm going to talk about my own journey as a professional social worker almost 34 years ago. Like I was, in my introduction, you all said I started my work with my co-founders in Kamatipura way back in 1986. Rightly said, the largest red light in area in Asia. Now, what we noticed was an entirely different picture in the red light area when it came to a girl child. Actually, in the red light area, the birth of the girl child was celebrated, but for all the wrong reasons. This was one place where women were encouraged to have girl children. The birth of the girl child, like I said, was celebrated, and till a woman had a girl child, there, she would be said, come on, continue till you have a girl child. A girl child in these brothels, what we found was groomed by the time she was 12 and 13 years to be eventually sold into the sex trade. And that's why I said, for all the wrong reasons. The perpetrators of the sex trade saw this child as a sure and free recruit into the sex trade. And the mothers were always told, she is your old age security. In other homes, it's the boy who's considered as your old age social security. But in the red light area, it was different. At any given evenings in the brothel, by the by lanes, if you went into the by lanes or the main lanes or on the streets, you would see 3 generations soliciting, waiting for clients to pick them up. And this was the vicious intergenerational cycle we saw. We also saw this very practice in the Devdasi system. I don't know how many of you probably know, but I know there is very limited time. Maybe you can look up what the Devdasi system is. But this system had a very strong social and religious sanctity to exploit girls generation after generation. Intergenerational trafficking, believe me, was not limited to the red light area or just the Devdasi system. We saw it then and even today in communities like the Bedias, the Bancharas, the Nut community, who are spread in states like UP, Madhya Pradesh, and Rajasthan. What we also saw was that these girls and their mothers had no hope of breaking away. The society preferred to keep them invisible and no one cared to hear them. No one made an attempt to understand their aspirations. They all felt prostitution is a necessary social evil. And believe me, even today, people feel prostitution is a necessary social evil. And instead of bringing girls from outside, why not girls born to the mothers who are already in the sex trade to continue the business? This is the kind of mindset we are still in 2021, still living. Also, very strong belief that sex trade protects good girls. The existing of sex trade protects girls, good girls, from being sexually assaulted, which meant exploitation of some girls is okay to protect other girls. These are the mindsets as students of social work, as people in the development sector moving forward, we really need to change. This was the time. Now, if you look at 1986, it was the time when children's rights were discussed. It was at its peak. And of course these discussions did cover discussions around child trafficking, but not a mention about intergenerational trafficking existed, not a mention about intergenerational trafficking in the sex trade, commercial sexual exploitation of children, and nothing about how girls were part of this, which was being carried out generation after generation and justified by society in the guise of hereditary sacred customs and customary practice. Now this, I feel, as social workers, we should be very, make note of and take cognizance of. The worst for me as a social work practitioners, I feel, is normalization of exploitation, violence, and acceptance that violence, an acceptance by the victim, okay, acceptance by the victim that violence is an immutable part of their life. And changing this was the challenge ahead of us when it comes to girls born in these brothels or born elsewhere to prostituted women. As a response, now, I know Rajiv sir kept telling me, Preeti, please speak about what can the development sector do. You see a problem, but what can we do? So I'll just tell you very briefly what we did as a response to protecting rights of the children. I think the first thing we did was we started interacting with the mothers to try and understand how is it that they understood the future of their children. And believe me, then and even today, we've not met a single mother who said she wants to see her child in the sex trade, which means what we did as the starting point of our intervention was co-creating solutions. And I think this is so important, that we do not come as outsiders with a solution. We need to co-create solution. We need to make communities feel that they have a problem and they're part of the solution. So we started the first night care center in the midst of the red light area. We focused on their rights to protection and development, ensuring they got enrolled in formal school, and then slowly moved on to focusing on changing mindsets, both of the civil society, the policy makers, and the funding agencies. And the big turning point was in 1998 when Government of India released the policy document titled Plan of Action to Combat Trafficking and Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Women and Children. And for the first time in a government document, there was a mention of girls and the vicious cycle of intergenerational trafficking. And for the first time in any government document, there was a mention of the importance of starting comprehensive services for children born in the red light area so that girls are not left behind. While handling any such issues, I think the developmental sector needs to work at three levels: the micro level, the meso level, and macro level. And this happens, it may not happen at the same time, okay, no problem, but we need to have our eye on all these levels. Moving forward, discrimination against girls in India uh, has been going on, since ages. Even today, there are several sections of our Indian society where the girl children is seen as a burden, while several privileges, like Rajiv sir just now mentioned, are given to boys. Girls are often restricted to the confines of the house and given very little or no opportunities to learn and grow in life. India, yes, in Indian homes, we do see are the center very often of familial forces that influences girls, use of time, social status, mobility, and access to education and healthcare. Within the family, gender discrimination towards adolescent girls stems from deep rooted patriarchy and manifests itself in the widespread preference for son. A female child is seen as a burden, like I'd already said, and we see any opportunity that exists goes to the boy child. Investing in girl children is always seen as waste of time and waste of resources. In the next 10 minutes that I have, I would be covering a few issues, but please bear with me. Whatever I cover would be the tip of the iceberg, and whatever I cover now should be seen in the context of COVID, because things have got further deteriorated for girl children in during the pandemic in the last 18 years. For me, while we are talking about concerns related to girl children, mapping the violation of rights, vulnerability, sir spoke about the term vulnerability, but I strongly believe that we need to conduct, it's a very dynamic process, it cannot be a one time activity, but regularly conduct vulnerability mapping. And to begin with, whenever we do this exercise, I think right to life is very, very essential because of the preference for son in our society. Female feticide, the practice of infanticide, feticide, sex determination, abortion, we've seen affects girl children. 10 million female fetuses have been aborted in the last 20 years. And this despite government of India having declared pre-birth sex determination through the use of amniocentesis as unlawful. As a country, every day or every now and then we hear about news of female feticide, infanticide, but definitely more female fetuses being killed from states like Tamil Nadu, northern states like Haryana, Rajasthan, and Punjab. To check this, we have an act in place. We have government and NGOs together have worked, used different communication mediums like All India Radio, Doordarshan, song and drama divisions, and others to regularly give messages on what the law says, how it's an offense, how it's a crime. We've had NGOs organizing workshops, seminars at state level, regional level, block level. And believe me, there was a time when I felt we had almost handled the issue. We saw religious leaders coming together. We saw the medical fraternity coming together to curb this practice. Yes, we didn't work in silos. And this is one learning that we all have to take back as social workers, is there is no way we can crack any issue if we are going to work in silos. What we need is a multi-pronged approach in our work towards gender equality and justice. We need to involve boys and men as partners. We are not at war with boys and men. They are our partners, and we need to see how we make them our allies. But having said this about female feticide and the whole issue of amniocentesis, and we were almost feeling happy we had done it, and suddenly we realized that in Asian country like Thailand suddenly became the place for medical tourism, especially for selective IVF. And we realized, oh my god, while we were looking and addressing issues at a local, national level, we now need to move and look at regional level, because the girl may be from India, but we might find ways and means to exploit her and ensure she does not exist by moving to other country and killing her. So our work cannot just be limited to local and micro, maybe state level. There are certain issues where we will have to take it at national level, we'll have to take it at a more universal level. Going forward, I think I have another 15 minutes, and I'll try my best to wind up in 15 minutes. I want to give you an example which I was horrified in 2011 when I read this in the newspaper. And in a state like Maharashtra, so we have we have a district where suddenly there was media reports that girl children were being named Nakusha. In Marathi, Nakusha, which also means Nako Asleli Mulgi, meant unwanted child. And what the media report said was, in families in that district, If the third child was a girl child, she was named Nakusha, with this superstitious belief that the next child at least will be named a boy child. And if the next child will be boy child, he was often named after a god to thank the god. The response of the development sector at this stage was amazing. They immediately got together. They worked. The first thing they did was they worked with media groups. They gave a lot of visibility to the issue. They started working towards prevention, and parallelly they started working with the government, the district administration, with all the relevant departments within the district administration. And very encouraging, the collector responded very positively and did a very big event where 280 such girls were identified, and in a big ceremony these girls were given an opportunity to take any name they wanted. This was just the beginning of addressing this issue. Why do you think I brought this issue up? Why as social work students we need to discuss this while addressing girl child? Because very often as social workers we stop after gestures like this, and I feel these are gestures which may amount to a tokenistic approach, a very tokenism way of handling and addressing issues. I feel no heroic offerings that create dramatic narratives. We can't stop at dramatic narratives. We need to move towards a more broad based systematic intervention. I keep thinking, I also think of the mental impact these girls would have gone through for having a name like Nakusha, the bullying that they would have experienced. Therefore, a more holistic, a multidisciplinary approach to address issues like this, we need, as development sector, we need to adapt. There's yet another, in South, I had come across when I used to teach at the Amrita University as a visiting faculty, was the Sumangali system, very prevalent in Coimbatore and in Tamil Nadu, practiced in the textile industry. And people like us who work on human trafficking issues, we call it soft trafficking. Now, a lump sum, under this system, a lump sum is paid to this girl so that she can use it as her dowry. Once hired, the contractor does not allow her to move freely. So again, there is a system of bonded labor here, and these are all girls below 18 years, and that's why I've taken this as an example, where the contractors don't like her to move freely because they're worried they'll come in contact with labor unions. Now, what did the development sector do? Besides doing research, besides having stories, besides having hard data, numbers, they used all that to create awareness. And what is very interesting is they brought pressure both at the national and international level. So at an international level and national level, what did this do? So I spoke about having a multi-pronged, multidisciplinary, multi-sectorial approach. You can see it here. They contacted the fashion designing houses. They convinced them that they should not engage in any kind of relationship in the supply chain. Anybody in the supply chain who's practicing Sumangali scheme. I don't know what is happening because of the COVID, but I know there were a lot of people, lot of fashion designing houses at that international level who discussed it and decided to to cancel their contract with those industries who, even if it meant in the supply chain, were practicing the Sumangali scheme. So engaging communities, this comes to our next issues. Are we engaging communities? Are we being flexible to adapt to people's needs? Are we working as facilitators and contributors towards development, ensuring that right to safety and protection are non-negotiable? For me, I think this is also very, very important. Do I have another 10 minutes? Can I go on, or do I need to stop?
Yes, ma'am. Another 10 minutes. Yes.
10 minutes. Okay. So the task ahead of us is to see each of these areas and how, like I said, the pandemic has affected us. I think someone in the beginning at the inaugural said how girls are victims of double discrimination. One, they are children. Two, they are, girls. And it gets further compounded if they are disabled, if they decide to to talk about their sexuality, if they decide that they are not girls but maybe they belong to the LGBTQ community, the minority group, the religious minority group, all this together makes their situation even more vulnerable. Coming to education, again, in spite of all the provisions made in the constitution, in spite of Sarva Shikshan Abhiyan, which to a great extent has been successful in bringing the girl child back to school, yet their retention rate in school is lower as compared to their male counterpart. Once again, bringing up the whole digital divide that we have been experiencing before the pandemic and which has got further aggravated post pandemic. All these issues we need to address. For me, I feel when we talk about education, it's not just enough that as developmental sector, we ask for more schools. We need to have a very holistic approach. We need to ask for more schools. We need to ensure that girls are enrolled in school. We need to check if they stay in school. Not only that they stay in school, but do they continue in school? Are they able to learn in school? Are they safe in school? Many of us have experienced that children drop out also. Girls drop out because they don't feel safe in school. And do they have a future of their own choosing? We need to have schools, yes, but are there teachers in these schools? Are the teachers sensitive? Is the curriculum meaningful for girls? Ensure textbooks and our curriculum does not propagate gender stereotypes. Today on this platform, I feel so proud to be one of the speakers, and I want to congratulate the Kerala government for announcing that school textbooks in Kerala will be revised and audited to inculcate a culture of gender equality. I feel such a right time for me to be on this platform and for us to talk about rights of girl children. Again, right to recreation. Do we talk enough about involvement of girls? Right below my house, below my kitchen, there's a big public park. And believe me, come Saturday, Sunday, weekends, and bank holidays, I have barely seen girls use these public parks. Are we doing enough for girls in terms of their right to recreation? Do we even recognize that girls have a right to recreation? Coming to health, do we really give preference to health, or are home remedies the way to address girls' health concern? And within health, my biggest concern is mental health, which always gets ignored, which has so much of stigma and taboo. Do we access? And even if girls do access mental health, the stigma that they face for accessing it is a concern we need to address. Female genital mutilation, India just does not talk about it. We need to talk about it. It is happening in India. It is a reality in India. What are we doing about it? Female genital mutilation can lead to irreversible health problems and fatal infections. Let's not neglect this issue. Right to protection. Exactly about a week ago, a 11-year-old girl was being sold to a customer for 3 lakhs. Today, that girl is admitted into the shelter home that Prerna runs. We've spoken about child marriage, the increase of child marriage during the pandemic. The violence that the girls are experiencing, the silent violence, which is difficult to quantify since it's usually occurs behind closed doors. During the pandemic, we spoke about the shadow pandemic growing. I know UN Women did launch a shadow pandemic public awareness. I know government government of India got into action to ensure every district across the country had a one-stop crisis center. But for the development sector, are we going to be happy with the one-stop crisis center? Or moving forward, are we going to say, are these client-centric, trauma-informed care? Are the services empathetic in their service delivery? Do they have an outreach program? What is the discrimination that girls and women are facing here? Similarly, going to clothings, the least discussed. Are girls pushed to wear certain kind of clothes? Let's look at the pandemic, when we had the PPE kit. It was designed for male, for health professionals, but for male professionals. They forgot that women are doctors and nurses and they're going to be using it. It was only when on social media there was so much of criticism that they changed the design. We are not talking about women and clothing and women and their right to dress. Every time women and clothing comes into the discussion, it is only to talk about how she got raped because she wore certain kind of clothings. Adolescent girl age is again a very, very significant group among girl children and their rights, because they're considered as women in training. Suddenly from the age of 12 they jump into adulthood. They do not enjoy their adolescent phase. We need to address that as well. And lastly, I want to talk about backlash. It's not that India did not do enough. It's not that the development sector and the civil society did not do enough to uphold the rights of girl children. But when girls got empowered, they started thinking for themselves. What we started experiencing was a backlash. We started experiencing women. We heard that do not give mobile phones to girls because that is the problem. They are too much on social media. They are having too much access to boys, and that is creating a problem. Girls were pulled out of school. We run a very small shelter home, and you won't believe it, in the last 5 years, the maximum girls in our shelter home are girls who made their choices to have a boyfriend, who made their choices to decide whom they want to marry and did not want to marry. And because they were tortured at home, they left their house, they ran away, they were traced by the police, they came to our shelter home, and the families did not want to take them out of the shelter home because they felt this is a good punishment for the girls. Let them stay there, let them have no access to education, let them have no access to telephones, let them have no access to the outside world. They wanted to teach their daughters a lesson. It wasn't for her rehabilitation or for her safety and for her care and protection that the parents wanted these children in our childcare institution. So we also need to talk about backlash every time we talk about empowerment of women and girls. My last comments is, lockdowns and confinements is going to create a lot of isolation among the victims. We need to ensure that we reach out to them. We need to ensure and figure out how do we protect them during this stage of confinement. A lot of marginalized girls are more likely to fall through the cracks, which brings us to the issue of vulnerability mapping. Again, not a one time activity at all, not a one time activity. It is a dynamic process. It has to be a continuous process. Yes, there is a long way for us. We need to co-create solutions, collaborate to create inclusion for the unincluded. This will enable the leap into a more progressive future. Let's create a world where girls can dream with ambition, claim their spaces, they can empower each other, they can trust their strength and lead with compassion. I once again thank you. I hope I didn't overstep my time. I once again thank Rajgiri College, Rajiv sir, Binoy sir, Father Joseph, all the students and the faculty here for inviting me and patiently listening to some of my experience. I know I haven't done complete justice to the problems of girl children, but I think together we can achieve our goal towards gender equality and justice. Thank you so much.
We have now come to the end of the plenary session. Kindly raise hands if you have any queries. Dear participants, you may kindly raise hands if you have any queries.
Was I too fast? I kept looking at the time, and when I realized my half an hour was up, I think I just went at a Rajdhani speed.
No, it was an exact pace. Could you tell us something on how the social work students and social workers can associate, or what are the opportunities at Prerana Foundation, or being with your team? What are the opportunities maybe our students can explore further?
Certainly. So, with Prerna, I think when it comes to, if they want any experience around sex trafficking, how to work with victims of sex trafficking at different level, from a very individual level to doing casework to, working on policies to working on, advocacy to creating campaigns, use of social media, to addressing issues of girl children living in childcare institutions. So there's very little time I got to cover the Juvenile Justice Act. For all of us who are going to be working with children, Juvenile Justice Act is one act that we will constantly come in contact with. We need to see whether the act is gender friendly. Which aspect of the Juvenile Justice Act do we need to further strengthen so that girl children are treated with equality. So that's another area. We have a lot of work around child sexual abuse. So welcome to work. And like I said, we work at the meso level, which is at an individual level, the macro level, as well as at the micro level, as well as the macro level. So, and we also have a project where we work with children who are rescued from begging. Today, I urge each one of you to visit our website, which is called www.fighttrafficking.org. I'm going to put it up in the chat box. This is online resource center, and we have created it so that social work students will benefit. So if you look at some of the cases that we have documented, it is for students of social work to understand that what is the kind of casework approach you should have, why it is important to have a very client centric trauma informed care, how healing is important, what it means for a child to go through prosecution, what is the support that the child needs, especially a girl child, as a victim and as a witness to her own crime. So please do visit the website, and do tell us what more we can add into it. I'm just typing the URL so that you can all visit it and do give us suggestions. For those who are interested in social media, we have a very big component. Like on Monday, please join us on our Twitterthon, on our social media, on Twitter. We are doing it on Right to Recreation. So please do join us on. So we regularly have these events. We have either a Twitter chat or a Twitterthon. If the Students Association want to have a Twitter chat with us, we can plan one whenever you want. So these are some of the opportunities you can explore.
Paul, you may unmute and ask the question now. Meghna, you can also unmute and ask the question. I saw that you had raised your hand.
Or maybe you can just put it in the chat box if you like. Anybody, and I can read it. I can't read Malayalam. You know, I come to Kerala very often, but it's been 2 years since I haven't come. And when I used to go as a visiting faculty at Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeeth, I think those were some of my best times of spending with students. And we did this course on, you know, a master's course on child rights and child protection. So we covered a lot of these issues. I got to learn a lot from our students there. I still remember a student once in the class asking me, why is it that in a law you have the word sections, and why is it that in conventions you call it article? So my immediate response was, I'll come tomorrow and give you the response. I don't know why, I never gave it a thought. So yeah, you know, it's students teach you a lot. They help you introspect. It says not allowed. What says not allowed? Okay, Paul, why don't you type your question in the chat box and I can read it? Okay, fighttrafficking.org is saying not allowed. Maybe this, I think there is, you know, internet and all problems, so maybe the site is down for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah.
But you know, do visit it, it'll come back. We've been having trouble with our website in the last 2-3 days. So
Good afternoon, ma'am.
yes, Meghna. Yes, Meghna.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you for this informative session. I have a small question, ma'am. So, girl child, like any child actually, or the girl child, are most vulnerable sections of this society. So when I was doing a study, I have found that children who are affected by domestic violence, or children who have faced these kind of activities, have the tendency to practice these activities in the future. So as a society, society's perception is, if somebody is practicing domestic violence, or for example, I'll bring a big word here as marital rape, which is still not considered as a crime by the society. So when these things happen, a mental state of a child, they undergoes a lot of things. Like they face a lot of trauma, they face a lot of anxiety, and as a result, the child's socialization, their development gets affected. So as a social worker, what role we play here? Because when we come and talk about these things, the only response that we get back is that this is a family issue, we should not interfere in that. So as a social worker, how can we reduce these things? Because this has become one of the major issues in our society, especially in Indian society.
Meghna, you should ask me easy questions. I'm not so intelligent. You ask me so many difficult questions. Oh my God. And in one question, you ask me 15 questions. So let's break it. Okay, Meghna. So first and foremost, let's see why children who have experienced abuse or violence, you know, inflict abuse and violence on others. So one, like, you know, while I was talking, I spoke about normalization. And I often say that, you know, let's not normalize violence, because if children begin to think that violence is the way of responding to situation, they're going to, you know, obviously when they grow up, they're going to perpetuate violence. So we need to stop it at there. Huh? So normalization of violence is something we need to address. Huh? The other is, yes, as children, we see adults, as children, our own experiences, and we tend to mirror it. You understand mirroring? You know, we play as children doll houses. So we have you know, we have a father, we have a mother in our game. So father goes to office, mother stays at home and cooks. Why do we all do this? Because we are mirroring what we are seeing around us. We are mirroring it because we think that is normal. And I think we need to work with children when they are young. We need to talk to children about, you know, appropriate, inappropriate behavior. We need to talk to children about consent and boundaries. You know, Meghna, we do not talk about boundaries in Indian culture. Nobody thinks they should, like, for example, how many of us send a text message or a WhatsApp message to a person, to our friends, and say, can I call you? We say, oh, she's our friend, what to send a text message? We just pick up the phone and call people. And even as us, we don't tell our friends, ki, don't pick up the phone. I may be busy. If you need to call me, send me a text message. I'll tell you when to call. Now, these are setting boundaries. How many of us ask a child, would you like to sing in front of the guest? The minute there are guests, we tell the child, ABCD, say ABCD to auntie, say how 1, 2, 3. Do we really ask? Do we really want to know whether the child is interested in reciting a poetry, not reciting a poetry? So somewhere I feel, all these things together needs to be introduced at a young age. And as social workers, we need to understand very often, believe me, I'm a social worker and I criticize my community the most. I feel I have the biggest right to criticize our community, okay? Because we are one. And I feel we ourselves don't understand consent and boundaries. We ourselves do not understand what trauma is, what trauma informed intervention is. So I'll give you an example. Once a girl in a shelter home comes and tells a MSW social worker of that shelter home, that certain girl is bullying me. What was the response of that MSW? Oh, don't worry, she's there just for 3 days. Once she goes away, your problem will get solved. This is not the way to handle issues. I feel the child is going through trauma. We should have heard her out. We should have asked her, what do you expect? What is it that I can do for you? Maybe the girl wanted to respond, but we shut her by saying, oh, this happens. So you also gave her an indirect message that, oh, bullying happens all the time. Don't worry, when the bullies disappear, you can get a little bit of relief. So I feel any kind of violence, if you do not want it to perpetuate, one, never remain silent, and two, handle it in a way that the person understand this is wrong. This behavior is non-negotiable. You are fine. I'm here to help you, but I am not going to support you with this kind of behavior. We need to work together so that you stop behaving whereby we are violating somebody's space. Megha, did I answer your question? And if I
Yes.
didn't, I warned you earlier, I'm not so intelligent. You asked me a very complicated question.
No,
Meghna,
ma'am.
I'm sorry, Meghna.
You answered to the question.
Okay, Meghna. Okay.
Thank
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, I can't get your name. Paul,
My name
is that Paul?
Paul, yes.
Hi, Paul.
Yes. Paul. Thank you, ma'am. It's been an honor listening to you. I was telling a friend here that you were speaking from the heart. Thank you very much. I have 2 questions. And the first one is the issue of the legal status of prostitute or prostitution, and situations where they've been referred to as sex workers now.
Okay.
Okay. When you look at countries such as Spain, it was projected that sex trade,
I'm listening.
Okay, $26.5 billion of tax in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now as a social worker, there is tendency that most of us see sex workers or prostitutes as from a moral perspective. All right. So in your experience, have you encountered people who sees prostitution beyond the morals, or who assumes it as their business or trade? That is one.
Okay.
Maybe I should just quickly say the second one so that you answer it together.
Okay.
All right, ma'am. So the second one is regarding the digital divide.
Yes.
I from the way from the point Dr. Rajiv started speaking about it, and then you mentioned it, I was beginning to feel like maybe this is something that I should look into for my research, because I'm really interested in the technology world, especially as a social worker. So now I want to look at, I mean, the question that I would ask you is, what aspect could a social worker focus on? Because I run Facebook ad recently targeting Africa, majorly Nigeria, and I find out that majority of the people who will click on an ad on Facebook are males. Okay, so women rarely click on ads, even though they are on the internet. So, and in my own layman's understanding, I'm assuming that it's because they are not financially aware of the benefits. You know, they are not aware of the financial benefits as far as digital platforms is concerned. Okay, that's just an assumption. So, but in your advice, what area would you advise somebody to focus on? Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Paul, I'll answer your first question about legalization and sex trade and sex work. Our own organization does not believe in legalizing the sex trade, not because we are moralistic about sex and sexuality and how women should conduct their sexuality and what they should do with their sexuality. Absolutely not because of that. We see the sex trade and prostitution as a human rights issue, okay? And we see a lot of human rights violation within the sex trade. We feel the induction of young girls and women, the grooming of young girls and women, the way they are lured and deceived and forced into the sex trade. This is violation of human rights. And legitimizing violation, legitimizing exploitation, even if at some stage the victim begins to think this is normal, we are a little hesitant to take, not little, very hesitant to take that position. Paul, once again, I'm repeating, we do not come from a moralistic position at all, okay? We do not think that, tomorrow, if and don't feel bad, okay? Don't feel bad because I'm saying, okay, let me take my own example. I've come from a background where socially, culturally, and politically, I am more empowered than others, okay? If somebody like me who's socially, culturally, politically empowered, and I kept in my presentation, kept using the word agency, I kept talking about my right to be able to make choices, okay? And when I make choices, I should have a number of things in front of me, okay? Choices can't be when I just have one answer, I just have one thing left and I have to choose. I can't choose when I've been given only one option, right? When you're making choices, you have a range of options. And Preeti Patkar did have a range of option. And what did she choose? She chose Nirmala Niketan and Tata Institute of Social Sciences. She did not choose sex trade. Now, a socially, politically, culturally empowered person like myself, if I had chosen sex work as my way of sustaining myself, as a way of my life, I don't think I would have, as a social worker, gone and intervened. I would have said, okay, great. But I'm talking about those thousands and lakhs of women whose vulnerability is exploited, whose vulnerability is where people are encashing and making profits by giving her no choice. No choice when she was pushed into the sex trade and no choice today for exiting the sex trade. For me, this is human rights violation. Okay, Paul. Your second question of digital divide. Today, Paul, it's not just digital divide. The pandemic also taught us another divide that exists in our society, and that is the divide because of lack of identity and social security documents. If I don't have an Aadhaar card, if I don't have a birth certificate, if I don't have a ration card, today, no matter how poor I am and how much I am in need of government schemes and services during the pandemic, I'm not getting it. So similarly, the digital divide, the more, so, in this entire pyramid, the pyramid that we constantly are taught about in the College of Social Work, whoever is the most vulnerable, whoever is the most marginalized, I hate to use the word most, but even among marginalized, there's somebody a little bit more resourceful as compared to others. There is always going to be a resource divide there. Why are we talking about digital divide during the pandemic? Because everything moved into the digital world, everything moved into the virtual world, and digital devices became a mode for us to access each other. And in that space, education became the focus, because, well, if you had no digital device, okay, you had no access to education. And girls with disability, in a family where there are more than 5 girls, obviously were the ones who are experiencing it. And I think it's an amazing topic to take up research, and I would definitely encourage you to not take up urban slums, not take up your research in peri-urban areas, but like Father MK Joseph mentioned, take it in the heart of our country, the rural India, where you would really be able to experience what is happening with education and digital divide, and how every time a girl or women has had access to digital devices, how they have been deprived just because they were exercising their right to choice. So I think you should take both, right to choose and deprivation of technology, and right to education and deprivation of technology. Please take both in your research. Paul, I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
All
You're
the best,
fantastic.
Paul, for your research.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
No.
Thank you, ma'am, for enlightening us with such a wonderful session. It was indeed a privilege to have you with us today. We are grateful to you for sharing your deep knowledge about the topic. Your session was full of enthusiasm and valuable insights. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Can I sign out now? Is that okay? For me to sign out?
One
Am
more
I
minute.
done?
There is a formal vote of thanks also, please. Could you
Okay,
please
okay.
stay for couple of minutes? Yeah.
And if you all could take a formal virtual photograph as well, then maybe I can share about this event on social media.
Yeah, please. Amal, you are taking the photo, right?
We can request people to switch on the videos.
Yeah, please switch on the video so that we can take a photograph. Yeah.
I want to wish everybody, all the students, in their future career, all the best. And there's a lot to be still done and achieved. And at any stage, if there's any way we can be of any help to you, please do not hesitate to reach out.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Kiran Thampi is a faculty member in the Department of Social Work and also the Assistant Director of Office of International Relations. He has done his PhD and government-funded research in organizational practices of non-governmental organizations. He is also a consultant for various non-governmental organizations and corporates. I invite Dr. Kiran Thampi for the vote of thanks.
Thank you for the invitation. Respected dignitaries on and off the virtual dais, my dear participants, we have been witnessing a great, compassionate talk with conviction from Ms. Preeti. And when I search, prerna is a Sanskrit term which means to inspire. And definitely this is, she carries this quality with herself, and we all are inspired. In Malayalam also we take the same meaning for the term as prerana. See, when I go through some of the activities of prerana, I was fascinated with the three pillars which they stand on: protecting rights, creating choices, restoring dignity. Wonderful catchwords which is reflected through the activities done by prerana, and also some of the meaningful activities which they have named as Sanman, which means to honor, Aram, which means to break the silence. So these are all the activities which not only attracts us with the name, but also in-depth activities which they reach out to the target people. And also what she mentioned as the reference with regard to the resources which they have compiled, it is really good. I have visited the website also, and a range of spectrum of activities ranging from legal toolkits as well as the on-ground protocols. So thank you, ma'am, so much. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing your valuable insights, valuable experiences. Definitely we'll be connecting with you further. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and all the best for the rest of the seminar, and for tomorrow, and to all of you for your future career. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
We, let me thank the other dignitaries also who blessed us with their presence and their talks. We had Dr. Binoy Joseph, the principal, Rajagiri College of Social Sciences. Thank you, sir, for your valuable insights. We also had Dr. Father Joseph MK, head of the Department of Social Work, who's always motivating us to aim for high heights. We had Dr. Rajiv SP, who's ignition behind this the SWARAJ conference. Thank you, sir, for your presence. We also have student coordinators, the SWARAJ coordinators of this program. We also thank them, Ansia as well as Jose, and all the colleagues and participants who will be having a fruitful, wonderful time, and looking forward for your contributions. Thank you. I remain.
Thank you, sir. Now we will be proceeding to the breakout room